Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong, don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Hey, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 No time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you on this Tuesday?
Terrific Tuesday. Just a whole lot more NFL news. So, yeah, going to be fun to get into it.
We are going to be grading a lot of the free agent moves that continued to pour in yesterday after the morning show went off of the air. We also got JG coming on a little bit. We got some Major League Baseball stuff to get to. But let's start with some NBA. Let's do a little NBA State of the Union address here, Mo. Let's take a look at the league, see what we're looking at, see where things stand. We are about 20 games to go. Most teams are just under that mark. Most teams are around 18 or 19 left in the season, which means we are getting down to the end. Let's start in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the Boston Celtics continue to be the class of the NBA. They sit there with a 50-14 mark. They're the only team in the NBA to have 50 wins. The next closest would be over in the West with Oklahoma and Denver at 45 apiece. Boston has an 8.5 game lead over the 2-seed Milwaukee Bucks. It's only going to be a few weeks before we talk about Boston clinching the number 1 seed. But before we get into that, let's drop to the bottom. The only team eliminated in the East currently, outside of... How is Detroit not eliminated, Mo? Oh, I guess they're not because there is they're about to be eliminated. So I'm looking at the standings. Washington is technically above Detroit the way it's listed, but Detroit by percentage points still has, because of their schedule and who they play, they still have a mathematical chance. If they win out and a lot of teams lose out, Detroit can still technically make the playoffs. But I want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets. So right now, the 10 seed in the East is the Atlanta Hawks. They're not a very good team. They're 29-35. They are 2 teams right now in the East with a losing record that are trending towards making the play-in game. 21 games out of first place. They have a 3.5 game lead over the Brooklyn Nets. Mo, is there any chance that Brooklyn pulls something off over these last 18 games and they are able to catch the play-in pack and knock out either the Hawks or the Bulls? The Bulls are only a game and a half ahead of the Hawks. So both of those could be in striking distance for Brooklyn. Any chance you see of that happening?
It's possible, but I've watched a lot of Nets basketball, and when you watch them, they don't really have an identity. I don't know what they do well. I know what they don't do well. The ball movement, there is none. They don't have a true playmaker on their roster. They have a lot of guys with similar skill sets. So I think they can make a run by default, Chris. Let me put it that way, because the bottom of the East is really bad. So could they make a run? Sure, because when you look at the Nets and the Hawks and teams of that nature, along with the Bulls, I think they're all in similar situations. The Nets are a younger team, but they really don't have somebody that you can build around. A lot of people like Mikal Bridges. I do too. But I look at Mikal Bridges as a guy that on a very good team, he's either a very good 2 or an elite 3, but he's not a building block player. And that's their issue. You look at the Hawks, I'm sorry, the Bulls, they're a little older. Everything is about now. So with DeRozan, with Vucevic, the younger guy is Kobe White. I think they've been playing better, even though they've lost their last couple of games. But I don't know what this means for them to make the play-in. You know what I mean? Like if your core, 2 of your core guys are in their mid-30s, does it benefit you to make the play-in, or are you better off not making the playoffs at all and maybe getting a better draft pick?
If you look at the rest of the East, the big question mark is going to be as things are separated now. The 2 seed is going to be contended down the stretch, most likely by Milwaukee and Cleveland. They're a game apart right now, and they have about a 4-game cushion on the next of the pack. Milwaukee is currently a game ahead of Cleveland. Then our next group, and they're pretty close together, you got the Knicks, the Magic, the 76ers. They're currently 4 through 6, but the Pacers are only half a game behind the 76ers in the 7th seed right now, and the Miami Heat are only a game behind Philadelphia in the 8th seed. So you have 5 teams playing for 3 technically legitimate playoff spots to avoid the play-in mess. Mo, of those 5 teams, the Knicks, the Magic, the 76ers, the Pacers, and the Heat, which of those needs to avoid the play-in the most? Which of those, if they have to be in the play-in, are you like, they're not really suited for that? If they could choose between the 6 and the 7, it would benefit them to get the 6 because the play-in may not be ideal for their roster construction.
I don't think the Sixers are made for it. I mean, obviously, Embiid is out, and they're saying he's coming back, but you're talking about a 280-pound man who will have to get his body into some kind of shape, and then there's basketball shape, and then there's timing. And he is coming off of the kind of injury that could affect how well he moves once he returns. So I don't think the Sixers, when you look at their roster, even though Maxey is a rising star, I don't think they're built to be in a play-in situation. And I really don't think, even if Embiid comes back, you're not going to get Embiid, the dominant player. You're going to get a guy who's going to be very good, but he won't be the same player. So it does not benefit them for sure. I think the Knicks can handle it. And look, the only reason the Knicks will end up in the play-in is because of injuries. They've just got bodies dropping left and right, and that will put them in the play-in. But if all things is right and the Knicks are healthy, or let's just say all the teams are healthy, the Knicks are not going to be in the play-in. And I still think they'll find a way to avoid it. But I think the team that the play-in is worst built for, or let's say their roster construction won't do well with it, it'll be the Sixers.
Yeah, the Knicks have lost 6 out of 10. They're down to the 4 seed. There is definitely a space between them and the Bucks and the Cavaliers. Those 3 teams were basically all on the same footing not that long ago. The Knicks have kind of sunk down to the 3rd tier in the East with the Magic, the Sixers, the Pacers, and the Heat. And then, of course, you have the Bulls and the Hawks bringing up the rear of the playoff field. Let's jump over to the West. Oklahoma City Thunder currently lead the West at 45-19. But, Mo, it's that time of year. We said just hang on. Let's see the year play out. Let's see where things shake out in the end. And it's been a slow and steady climb. There's been a couple of hiccups here and there, but only a half game out with less than 20 games to play. Your defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets are half a game out of first place, and their stock appears to be on the rise. They've won 3 in a row. They've won 9 out of 10. Let's not discredit the Thunder, who have won 8 out of 10. They have done a great job of keeping pace as well. But you look at what else is happening over there in the West. The Timberwolves have some injury concerns. They've lost 2 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10. The Clippers are 5-5 in their last 10. So you have a couple of teams that were vying for that number 1 seed. They're playing 500 basketball. And then you get a team like the Nuggets who has gotten hot, Mo. Are the Nuggets going to end up with the 1 seed? Or can a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder hold them off?
I think the Nuggets have a good chance. One, because obviously the Timberwolves, like you said, are dealing with issues. And look, even whole, they struggle offensively. They're very good defensively, but they struggle offensively at times. I'm looking at Oklahoma City with all that talent, all that young talent, and I think they could hold on. But here's the difference: if the Nuggets are the 2 seed and they don't win the number 1 spot, they're still my favorite to come out the West. If Oklahoma's the number 1 seed, the scary thing for them, and I'm not saying this to be a homer, I'm just being realistic and being honest, they don't match up well with the Lakers. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're horrible. It's a horrible matchup for them. The Lakers are a big team. They're physical team. And Oklahoma City is a lot of things. They're not big and they're not physical. The Lakers beating them 3 out of 4 times this season, it's not an accident. And they've done it with the same formula. They can just beat them up on the inside and dominate the paint and the boards, and they bottle up Shea. And so I'm sure they want the number 1 seed, but in the West, matchups are everything. I'm sure Oklahoma City would much rather play, even though some people would think not, they'd rather play the Clippers than the Lakers. They would. They'd much rather play the Clippers than the Lakers. It's just a better matchup for them. With the Clippers, to me, it feels like they still haven't come off All-Star break. The chemistry that they had developed before the break, the way the ball was moving, their defense had gotten better, and all that's kind of going to the wayside. And maybe this is just because we're coming to the sprint, the last part of the season, the dog days, and it is an older team. When you look at their core, everybody in their starting 5 outside of Big Z is in their early 30s. So it is an older team. They're going to have to manage their minutes better, Ty Lue and company. But I think, to me, it's looking at the West, Chris, with everything being said, it's the Nuggets to lose again. They're that good when they're whole. There's a separation between them and the rest of the West.
Let's not forget, if you are one who looks at schedules and you kind of see how schedules play out down the stretch, one of the interesting things in the West is, for whatever reason, the Warriors and the Mavericks play each other a lot towards the end of the season. I think they have 3 or 4 games against each other before the season closes out. Pay attention to that, because that could definitely determine some seeding between them. Obviously, Dallas right now is vying for that 6th seed, only a game out of it. And then Golden State, who is in the 10th seed, just inside the playoffs, but they have a comfortable 5-game cushion over the Rockets and a 6-game cushion over the Jazz. Mo, are the Rockets and the Jazz done? Any chance one of them climb back into it? It's a big 6 games, 5 games, and 18 is a big road to climb.
It's possible that one of them can get back into it, but I really think with Golden State, it's about if Steph Curry gets back into the lineup, right? Because he's been out with an injury. But once Steph comes back in, I don't think they're going to catch the Warriors. So my gut instinct is it's a lot to overcome in this sprint. I just think that the Warriors, once Steph is back whole, are just a better basketball team. So I don't think either the Rockets or the Jazz are going to make the playoffs or the play-in.
And JG mentioned it in the chat. He talked about his New Orleans Pelicans. They've won 4 in a row. I believe that they are on the longest current winning streak in the NBA at 4. 4 in a row and 7 of their last 10. They are the leader of that next pack in the West. That pack consists of themselves, the Suns, the Kings, and the Mavericks. Can any of those 4 teams get into the top 4? Because if you look at the West, much like the East, you have your divisions as you go through. The only difference is there isn't that dominant team in the West. So the West right now has that top 4, Thunder, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Clippers. They're all within 3.5 games of each other. But then the Pelicans at 6 games out, if Minnesota continues to struggle a little bit because of injuries, the Clippers have been playing 500 basketball. With 17-18 left to go, Mo, can you see the Pelicans jumping up to the 3rd or 4th seed before it's all said and done?
I think there's an opportunity for the Pelicans to get at least a 4th seed, because I do think the Timberwolves, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle because you're talking about 20 points, 10 rebounds. He's also a floor spacer for them. We're talking about Cat. And when you look at the Timberwolves, if Anthony Edwards doesn't create for himself and others. They don't have a lot of shot creators. It's either him or there's the veteran that they rely on, obviously Mike Conley, but they don't have shot creation on that team, and that's a struggle for them. And now that Towns is down, I just think that they were short of firepower anyway. They're going to be that much shorter going forward. I do think that the Pelicans, who by the way have played very well to me the last month or so. My only problem with the Pelicans is I feel like they're one of those teams that they can make that leap, Chris. They can get to the 4th seed, but if they don't get the right matchup, they'll get knocked out in the first round.
That being said, let's get JG on. He's sitting here talking to us about Pelicans basketball in the chat. Let's actually get him on here. Let me push the JG button over here. We got some Major League Baseball things to discuss. JG, how are you this morning, sir?
Good morning, fellas. Good morning. How y'all?
Good morning, JG.
JG, great to see you clanging and banging this morning. We're not going to take up too much of your time. Let's start with this, sir. I want to start with the Padres. The Padres are making news this morning because if their young player, I believe his name is Jackson Merrill, I could be wrong, but if Merrill makes the squad, JG, 8 of their 9 position players outside of the catcher are all converted shortstops. All players who came up as shortstops who have since been converted to other positions. Obviously, baseball is filled with fun little facts like that. But when you look at a team and you look at a situation like that, do you look at that as happenstance? Do you look at that as, wow, they realized they had all this talent and they converted it to other positions? Do you look at it as someone didn't do their job in the scouting department if we had to turn all of our shortstops into other position players? How do you look at that from an organizational stance? Because is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it inconsequential?
It's a mix. I say because when it's not necessarily that you're not doing your homework on these players, because we always, when we do scouting, even here in college, I'm looking at athletes. I'm projecting them. Are they at that position, or could they help us in a position that we have a need at? So you have a player who has basically been a shortstop majority of his life, but you look at him and say, man, he's got the build of an outfielder. He's got the build of a third baseman. He's got the build of a first baseman. He's just very athletic. Shortstop and center field are the 2 most athletic positions on the field, and you can basically put a shortstop anywhere and say you're going to be successful just because of how athletic you are. So it's not necessarily that they looked at it and say, well, we have all these shortstops. What are we going to do? They had a plan. They had a plan to say, well, yeah, we'll have him as a shortstop for now, but when we want him to be in the big league club, there's going to be a position we may not have him as shortstop because we have somebody already there. They've had Fernando Tatis Jr. They had Xander Bogaerts, this past season. They've had guys that they've had and say, well, yeah, we have a logjam there at one position, and we have someone that we have an idea that can be the shortstop for the big league team. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to need to move some guys around. We have this plan for a while now for Merrill. Let's go ahead and now utilize it. The Braves were doing the same thing. I'm utilizing my Braves, but the Braves had the same thing for Vaughn Grissom, where hey, he's a shortstop, but he's not necessarily a shortstop. Ozzie Albies was a shortstop throughout his time in minor leagues. He's a second baseman now. All these teams have an idea of a player, even though their primary position is X. They have an idea of, man, his position can be Y. And they're going to utilize him to the best ability for the big league club and working. So this is not a brand new idea that the Padres have had. I'm sure this has been a conversation since November, that when they get him in the big league in spring training with the big league club, start preparing him now. And when we get to spring training, let's go ahead and unleash him as the position that we want to use him at.
JG, obviously there's no way to quantify this, but as we prepare for the start of the 2024 season, one of the things that baseball fans love is the long ball. We love seeing the home run. We were all captivated a couple of seasons ago when Aaron Judge went on his run. Is there a player you think, I'm going to make you name at least one. Name me a player that you think has a chance to take target at the home run mark this season, whether it be, and you can tell us during this what you think the home run mark is, because obviously baseball purists think it's one number. The record book might say it's another number. So first, let's start there. What is the home run mark in your mind? And then who can take a run at it this season?
I hate this question because I always feel like a hypocrite. Because the record is 73. That is the record. Cannot deny that. Until Major League Baseball comes out and says 73 is not the record because of this, that is still the record. Do I like it? No, I don't. Do I like that 70 was the record? No, I don't. But those were the records. So 73 is the current record. I don't know if we're going to ever see 73 home runs, though. Or even 74. I don't think we're going to see that in today's game anymore. Just because the one we saw 62 just a couple of years ago, and that was a strenuous 62 home runs that we saw of Aaron Judge. And so many things have to go right for you to hit 74 home runs in a season. And again, 62 was a remarkable number we saw from Aaron Judge. I don't know if we're ever going to see 74. I think that's an untouchable number in Major League Baseball for a season. And looking at it, I'm trying to think. I mean, guys like Vlad Guerrero Jr., who's just a monster of a kid that has unbearable home run power. Matt Olson, who's who's got unbearable home run power. You have, there's so many guys that you can circle and say potentially can. I just don't think that number is ever going to be touched because, again, what Bonds did that season was absolutely freakish. It was remarkable. I mean, when you're sitting and expecting a home run to be hit, that says something right there, and that's what that season was. Is everybody was expecting Bonds to hit a home run, and he did. Judge, people were expecting to hit a home run. He didn't always hit home runs. Now, when he goes and he gets one, he got it, and he's going to do another one. Well, he didn't, and then it was a couple of games, and then he hit another one. You're almost expecting Bonds to hit a home run every game, and he damn near sure did. So I think that's just such a tough number. I don't think we'll ever see that number broken unless something just absolutely goes right 100%. When that is an impossible thing to say in a Major League Baseball season.
JG, as you know, baseball goes through ebbs and flows, and I think it might be fair to say the last 5 or 6 years could have been an ebb when it came to the catcher position in Major League Baseball. A lot of teams view the catcher position as, one, are you a good defensive catcher? That comes first. And then if you can get some production, great. That's a bonus. But as you look at the catcher landscape heading into the season, there's a lot of young catchers currently in Major League Baseball. I know that you're clanging and banging this morning, so you don't got the stats in front of you, but throw us out a couple of names of up-and-coming catchers or catchers that are entering their second, third, or fourth seasons where you kind of look at the catcher position as a whole and you're like, these are the guys. These are the guys to kind of keep your eyes on, because first of all, the catcher position is absolutely grueling in Major League Baseball, and I would argue it doesn't get nearly the respect that it deserves. So as a result, they're not always the guys. It's not like the Piazza days. Mike Piazza was a catcher that everyone kind of knew, and if you were a New York fan with the Mets, that was your guy. But not all catchers get that kind of respect. So looking at that position, what do you see in headed into the season that we should be looking for?
Adley Rutschman is probably going to be an MVP winner at some point in his career, and he will be in the conversation this year for MVP. I believe he'll be a top 5 MVP candidate. Rutschman is probably one of the best young catchers we've seen in the game in a very long time, and that says a lot. As far as we had a lot of really good catchers over the years. We've had Salvador Perez, who's still in the game going right now. We have obviously Yadi Molina, who, again, for a long time of his career. But Adley Rutschman at some point, Buster Posey, I'm not trying to forget anybody, Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, these guys, Hall of Fame guys that we've seen in this generation of catchers. And again, I'm shorting a few others. I know that as well. Adley Rutschman is probably skill-wise better than all of them. And that says a lot because, again, we talked about Buster being one of the better, again, Buster was one of the best catchers of our generation. And again, I throw Yadi into that conversation as well. I throw Mauer into the conversation. Said Salvador Perez being part of it. For a while, Perez was a top 5 catcher, I think, for a good portion of time of his career. But Rushman, for what he's done so young, stepping in and absolutely just taking off and jumping into when you play half a season in your rookie year, and then you go next season, you go into your first year as a starter, and you're already voted as the number one catcher. That says a lot, and it's a lot of respect to the from the position of people who watch and say Adley Rutschman is the guy in Major League Baseball. He will be a top 5 MVP candidate this year, if not potentially. If the Orioles have a repeat season like they did last year, he'll be a top 3 MVP candidate. And you're talking about a kid that just is intelligent, which is one of the more key components of a catching of the catching skills, is to be intelligent, understanding at how to control a pitching staff, and being as young as he is, being able to step in and do that immediately, along with the skill set of having the arm behind the plate, the bat in the box as well. He's a 5-tool catcher at a young age, and he's just going to continue to get better over these next few years. It's pretty scary what he's going to do as we, if we talk about the next 10 years, we could talk about Adley Rutschman being completely in the conversation with Molina, with Posey, with Mauer, as far as, a generational catcher and one of the best generational catchers we've seen in a very long time.
JG, always a pleasure. Get back to the clanging and banging, sir. We'll see you later on in the week.
Thanks for the knowledge, JG.
Always a pleasure having JG here on the show. JG was brought to you this morning by Sports Empire Network. Make sure you're checking out all the great content over there on Sports Empire Network. Mo, we got a lot to talk about in the world of the National Football League. So many moves have gone down in the last 24 and 48 hours. Before we get into all of that, we're going to grade them. We're going to talk about them. We're going to break them down. But before we get to that, let's kind of reset the deck here a little bit. Let's talk about what could be happening today and over the next couple of days as we look at who is still available on the market, right? How does free agent go? There's the big first wave, then everyone kind of settles, looks at where we stand, and then we have our second wave. And if you look at the big names still available out there, I'm just going to run off a couple of them. So we got Danielle Hunter, edge with the Minnesota Vikings. He's still available. Patrick Queen, linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens, is still out there. Kendall Fuller from the cornerback position. He was with the Washington Commanders. Calvin Ridley, who we all thought was going to be the best wide receiver option on the market. Not much conversation around him. A couple of teams were mentioned as having some lukewarm interest. He remains out there as of right now. Linebacker from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Devin White, very good player. He's still available. DJ Reader, defensive tackle from the Bengals, is still available. On the offensive line side of things, Trent Brown from New England is out there. Chase Young from the San Francisco 49ers. His future is still trying to in the balance as what's going to happen to him. Cameron Curl, safety from Washington. And Justin Simmons, who was just released from Denver not too long ago. He is still available as well. Other big names as far as name value, maybe not necessarily production-wise. Stephon Gilmore is available. Derrick Henry is out there. Offensive lineman Connor Williams from Miami is out there. Hollywood Brown, the second receiver on the free agent list of wide receivers, is still available. Aaron Jones is on the list I'm looking at right now, but it looks like he just signed a deal with the Minnesota Vikings this morning. So Aaron Jones will come off the market and he will jump ship to the Minnesota Vikings. Outside of that, Xavier Howard, former Miami Dolphin, he is still out there. Obviously, he's getting up there in age a little bit. Levante David, linebacker for the Buccaneers. Jadeveon Clowney, he played for Baltimore last year. He's still out there. And then you got, your typical third or fourth round of wave of people. Bobby Wagner is still out there. Josh Reynolds, receiver from the Lions, is still out there. But that's what's left. So if you go through wave one and your team didn't do much, and there were a handful of teams yesterday that didn't really do much, Mo. And my team was one of them.
That was mine.
Yeah, the Niners didn't do much. Dallas Cowboys, I don't believe they didn't do much. And, I look at it as this. First of all, and I'll talk about the Dolphins for a second because I got some messages yesterday. Dolphins worst team in free agency. Listen, First of all, Miami's won free agency many a times the past 15 years meant nothing. Winning free agency means nothing. So been there, done that, had an 8-win season, don't really care. So if you want to sit here and say the Dolphins lost free agency, I'm okay with it. You can say it all you want. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't impact me. I've had seasons where I've celebrated Miami winning free agency, and 8 weeks later, I was like, well, this was horrible. We're sitting here at 2-4 after winning free agency. So
yeah, I've been down that road before.
And as far as Miami lost some players yesterday, I can't really lie about that, Mo. But at the same time, I look at it, they lost Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. Miami couldn't afford to give Christian Wilkins a $110 million contract. It wasn't going to happen. They lost their guard Hunt to the Carolina Panthers. I mean, if Carolina thinks he's worth $100 million, good for you. Good for him. Miami wasn't paying that much money for him. Like, there comes a point where you can afford what you can afford. Whatever you can't afford, you can't afford. Miami drafted those players. Props to them for drafting players who got that much money somewhere in the league. Clearly, their personnel and their scouting department did well in that area. But this is the way the NFL works. You have years where you don't have the money, and you got to kind of let people go, and you got to reboot and reset. And that's what some teams like the Dolphins are going through right now. Buffalo's going through that. The Saints are going through that.
The Niners are too.
It is. The Niners are going through it. Doesn't mean that it's a failure. Obviously, you'd prefer to be in a better salary cap situation. But look at the teams, Mo, who are. Look at the teams that are in great salary cap situations. The New England Patriots. They were terrible last season. The Commanders. They didn't make the playoffs last season. Like, there's an ebb and flow to this, right? Not often do you see teams continuously making the playoffs who are also continuously in great salary cap situations. Yes, right. There are exceptions to the rule. There are some really great teams all the way through, from front office all the way down. But for the most part, there's a little bit of give and take there. Now, not everyone's going to be as terrible as the Saints are with their salary cap situation, but there's a give and take. So let's keep that in mind. If you have a team that wasn't very active yesterday, credit to the Dolphins though. They were active on the back end of free agency yesterday. They did pick up a center that was with Tennessee last season. That will probably be their starting center this season. They picked up an absolute dog at linebacker from Seattle to replace the linebacker they lost to Minnesota. So they did some, tier 2, tier 3 kind of moves, which is what I expected. And I think the Niners are going to do some tier 2, tier 3 kind of moves today and tomorrow, which is probably what you expected.
Sure.
Money doesn't grow on trees, and you just can't make it grow on trees either. So it is what it is, Mo.
It's where the NFL has been the past 15, 20 years, that at some point you got to pay the piper. And when you can't afford guys, even though you've drafted them and developed them, like you said, guys want to get paid. And when you see on the ticker, oh, the Niners released so-and-so, in this era, it doesn't mean he's washed or he's no good no more. 9 times out of 10, what it means is they couldn't afford to keep a very good player. And they had to make decisions like, if you've got a fourth linebacker and you're like, we really like this guy, he's great on special teams, he fills a void, but are we going to keep him, or do we have to cut some salary so we can pay Fred Warner or some of our other better players? I mean, that is the yin and the yang of the salary cap in the current NFL. So it's tough. On the flip side, like you said, most teams that have a ton of cap space, they're not very good teams. They're not very good teams. There's a reason why you got cap space. Like, you look at the Patriots roster top to bottom, just on the offensive side, no playmakers, nobody that stands out. Like, they have the third pick. If you're going to draft a rookie quarterback, you better not play him this year. You better sit him the way Mahomes sat his first year, because you don't have anything around him. You are literally setting up a rookie quarterback for failure with your current roster, which is why I don't think it's an accident that the Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett. They decided to let Jacoby Brissett take the beating.
That's exactly.
Congratulations, Jacoby Brissett.
I had a conversation. Some of you guys know Kyle from Sports Empire Network. Him and I had a conversation yesterday, and he was hyped. Now, okay, maybe he wasn't hyped. He was positive on the Jacoby Brissett signing, and he talked about Jacoby's leadership, and that's all great. And I will acknowledge that he has a reputation as being a great locker room guy in the NFL. He's been to multiple teams, and you've never heard anyone say a bad thing about Jacoby Brissett, personality-wise, locker room fit-wise, or anything like that. I did say, though, if Jacoby Brissett needs to start games for the Patriots outside of being a spot starter for a game, that it's going to be a situation, and it's going to be a situation that you don't want to be in. And he pushed back a little bit, and he said that if Jacoby has to start games, then the Patriot fans are going to understand the importance he brings to the team and why he's there. And Mo, I couldn't disagree more. If Jacoby Brissett is starting games, meaningful games, multiple games, because you draft a rookie quarterback and you want to sit him for the first half of the season, great. You're going to go 3-5 or 2-6 in those games. You're not going to have a winning record. Jacoby Brissett is not going to get you to a winning record. If Jacoby Brissett is starting the majority of your games, at best, you're a 7 or 8 win team. But you look at that division, the Jets are better than you. The Dolphins are better than you. The Bills are better than you. Oh, by the way, they all have better quarterbacks than you have. They all have better offenses than you have because they all have playmakers on their teams. So you look at that division, you look at that conference in the AFC, there's 16 teams over there. Where would Jacoby Brissett be? 12th? 13th? Somewhere down there. He's somewhere towards the bottom as far as starting quarterbacks if he's their starter.
Sure. No question. Look, I look at Jacoby Brissett like this, Chris. I view him as a capable backup. So if you told me
yes,
the Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett, I go, good, capable backup. The problem is they're going to start the capable backup. You're not going to be very good this season. And look, it's not like you're setting Jacoby Brissett up for success because you don't have a lot of weapons anyway. So I disagree with the notion that Jacoby Brissett is going to be like, he can get us 8 or 9 wins. Like, nah. The only way you get 8 or 9 wins, you're going to have a defense like the 85 Bears.
He'll get you a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
He'll set you up for the season after this season.
Yeah, he will help you get a higher draft pick the following season. I'm not trying to bang on Jacoby Brissett, but he's not. If that dude's your starter, that's not good.
You don't have a starter. If he's your starter, you don't have one.
Right. What are you selling your fan base on? That not that guy. Tell me you got a 1,500 or 1,800 yard running back or something of that nature. You can sell me on that. But on Jacoby Brissett, it's not an accident, Chris, that he's been on multiple teams.
All right, let's go through the free agent moves. Let's give them some grades. We're gonna mix it in. Some are from yesterday, some are from the day before. We're gonna start with Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 1 year, $1.2 million. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna give it a B, Mo, because it's a 1 year deal. He's better than any quarterback that is currently on that roster. And if it is an absolute disaster, you can just go to one of the quarterbacks who started meaningful games for you last season that helped you get to 10 wins last season. And then he's gone after this year. You didn't pay him any money. And it is what it is. Go draft a quarterback. Maybe they draft a quarterback this year. We don't know. We haven't gotten there yet. But for 1 year, you've already upgraded over what you have. And you potentially could bring the future in-house to groom for a year. Right. It's a win-win for me. It's a B.
I'll go B as well, but I'm going to go B with the potential of it becoming an A. Because I do think that Russell Wilson, I don't think he's just a default upgrade. I think he's just a better quarterback. They're going to get better quarterback play. And he's surrounded by better talent than he had in Denver. I think Russ is going to have a a much better year than he had last year. So I think he has a bounce back year. It'll be interesting to see what value he has to the Steelers going forward if they do draft the heir apparent. But I think it's a strong B. I think Russ is going to get them at least 10 or 11 wins. And look, I know people are like, well, what does it matter if he doesn't take them to the Super Bowl? And I'm like, I don't think that's realistic. I don't. It's not impossible, but that's more storybook. I'm going to go in reality. If Russ can resurrect himself by helping the Steelers get into the playoffs with a good season, then I think they've gotten more than the value that they've asked for. And really, we're talking about a guy you're paying $1 million to. If that guy turns around and he's obviously an upgrade over what you have, you're getting great value. So I think it's a strong B.
The Jaguars signed Mitch Morse, center from the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, Bills fan, he is still a good player no matter what you want to tell yourselves. I'm going to go B here as well, Mo. It was 2 years, $10.5 million, $7 million guaranteed. That O-line in Jacksonville needed help. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you he's a top 3 center in the league because he isn't, but I will tell you that he is a top 16 center in the league, and he is going to be an upgrade to an offensive line in Jacksonville that needs to protect Sunshine back there. So any piece that is an improvement over what they had last season that is going to keep that quarterback upright is a move in the right direction, and it didn't cost them a ton of money.
Yeah, I think that I love the contract if you're the Jaguars. And look, he's an upgrade from what they had. When you have a veteran center, the center is your quarterback of the offensive line. So that presence, that know-how, not top 10, but like you said, top 16, it is a vast upgrade, and it didn't cost you a lot of money.
Kickers deserve love too, Mo. The Jets and the Buccaneers re-signed their kickers, Greg Zuerlein and Chase McLaughlin. No need to grade these. Obviously, if your kicker is good and you re-sign him, that's what you need to do. But I'm glad that kickers were getting some love yesterday as well. Let's jump over to the Indianapolis Colts. They re-signed Michael Pittman, 3 years, $71.5 million, $46 million guaranteed. This happened a couple of days ago. It kind of kick-started all of the moves in the NFL. I still don't think he's a legitimate number 1 receiver. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him. He is a great receiver. I think he is top 10 if you're looking at number 2s in the league. I still think they need to get a legitimate 1 over there in Indy, or at least another top tier 2, maybe a T. Higgins to put on the other side of him.
That would be great.
That would be great. But I like the move. He's been a major part of this offense the last couple of seasons. If they were to have lost him, it would have been a huge hit going into the season because who was going to replace his playmaking ability? So I like the deal. I'm okay with it. We've seen far less deserving receivers get far more money. So I'm going to give it a B+ because he was your guy. So it's not like he hit one out of the park. He kind of took care of business. But I'll go B+.
I'll give it a B because I'm with you. I don't think he's a number 1. You want to use the term number 1-ish at times, maybe, but he's more of a chain mover, right? He doesn't take the top off the defense. He's not an elite route runner, but he does attack the football at his highest points. He's got really good hands. He
goes over the middle. He'll do the dirty stuff.
Right. He's that guy. He's a chain mover. He moves the chains. So I do think he's a terrific receiver. I don't think he's a number 1. If they had a number 1 and maybe T. Higgins is a number 1, T. Higgins also has the speed to take the top off the defense. I think it would open up things for their offense as a whole. So it's a good move for them, but I still think they need more speed on the outside to complement him.
DeAndre Swift, Chicago Bears, 3 years, $24 million, $15.3 million guaranteed. Swift coming off of a season with the Philadelphia Eagles. Prior to that, he was a breakout star with the Detroit Lions. Mo, people are high on this move. I'm not. And I'm not saying DeAndre Swift isn't talented. He's only 25 years old. I don't really have an issue with the money, $8 million per year. Maybe it's $1 million too high. I don't know. But I look at this and I'm just like, this screams to me What was the kid's name? Miles. That was the other Eagles running back.
Miles Sanders.
That's what this move looks like. This looks like a Miles Sanders move to Carolina. And I just don't think it's going to pay dividends. I think he's going to be an okay player in Chicago, but you're now looking at a 25-year-old running back who is on to his third team. Why is he on to his third team? And I understand what you're saying. Well, Chris, the Lions drafted Gibbs, so they didn't need him. And look at what the Eagles did yesterday. If the Eagles knew they were trying to make that move, they don't need him. Okay, I hear you. But at the same time, if he's the guy, he's not bouncing around the league before he turns 26 years old. So I guess he's a complimentary piece. I think he's gonna be fine, Mo, but I don't think it's a big swing. As big of a swing as others are saying.
No, look, I think you just nailed it. He's a very good back, but I don't think he's an every down back. He's more of a complimentary back. To me, he's somewhat like Aaron Jones, but not as good as Aaron Jones. He had his best season, obviously, last year, but that was playing behind that Eagles offensive line. And I just don't think I don't think it's a bad pickup, but I'm not sure that it moves the needle either way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he's going to have the impact that they feel he's going to have.
The Tennessee Titans signed former Dallas Cowboy running back Tony Pollard, 3 years, $24 million.
Yeah,
this does nothing for me.
Isn't this move just like the one we just talked about?
Yeah,
it's the same. It's not as good because Pollard had obviously come off a devastating injury the year before, and he didn't look quite like himself. And you go to Tennessee, and they have an okay offensive line. And I guess the plan is for him to be the change of pace back there because that's what he is at his best. He's a change of pace back, but
behind who?
I forgot the young man that was splitting time with Henry last year.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He is going to be the starter.
Yep.
I guess the catch is though, couldn't you have just drafted somebody to be a change of pace back and not have to pay that kind of money? You know what I'm saying? Like you could draft that guy in the 4th or 5th round. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just look at it, and I saw some Tennessee fans yesterday, and they were saying he's going to be part of the 1-2 punch. And I'm just looking at it like, okay.
Okay.
If coming off that season in Dallas, that's what you think, sure, I'm okay with that.
The 1-2 punch theory works if teams respect your passing game. If they don't respect your passing game, the 1-2 punch doesn't work.
And the 1-2 punch, that means you're using 2 running backs on a regular basis, which means you need an offensive line to open holes enough to feed 2 running backs. And I'm not convinced Tennessee has that line, but okay, sure. The Las Vegas Raiders gave a buttload of money to former Miami Dolphin Christian Wilkins. 4 years, $110 million, $84.8 million guaranteed. The young man got the bag. Him and Max Crosby are going to wreak havoc on the defensive side for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is an A move as far as I am concerned. And he's a good player. He's a good player that Miami just couldn't afford to keep.
And the best thing about the Raiders this coming season, it'll be watching their defense. Their defense, especially their secondary, is going to be improved by default because quarterbacks aren't going to have any time to throw the football. Like, they're going to get better because of those 2 guys coming off the edge. Like that, it's a great move for the Raiders who are in this semi-rebuild mode. We still don't know what they're going to do at quarterback going forward, but yeah, it's a great pickup for them.
Jacksonville Jaguars signed Gabriel Davis, 3 years, $39 million. I don't have an issue with the money. I have an issue with Jacksonville just not getting a number 1 receiver. Calvin Ridley was there. Doesn't look like he's coming back. I guess he's a fringe number 1. I love Christian Kirk, and he has number 1 production, but he's not a number 1 receiver.
No, he's not.
Gabe Davis is not a number 1 receiver. Can we just get Sunshine a number 1 receiver who is actually viewed as a number 1 receiver?
And let me ask you this, though. Is Gabe Davis better than Calvin Ridley? Because I'm going to say no. No. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. He actually is a descending player. He actually was coming back. They thought he was going to be the guy because he had a couple of big playoff games a couple of years ago, and they thought it was going to be a 1-2 punch with him and Diggs, and it never came to fruition because he didn't keep up his end of the bargain. The money isn't crazy. It's just crazy that you'd rather pay him than pay Ridley. I don't understand that.
I mean, I wouldn't pay Ridley either, but I also wouldn't be paying Gabe Davis.
I'm just saying I don't think Calvin Ridley's a number one, but I do think he's a better receiver than Gabe Davis.
The Packers signed running back Josh Jacobs, 4 years, $48 million. Okay. Aaron Jones was getting old. He turns 30. I guess that's the motivation here. I guess they're saying, hey, we would have used this money on Aaron Jones. We don't want to pay a 30-year-old running back this kind of money. So let's reset the clock by 4 years and bring in the 26-year-old. For me, that's what it was. You were just getting a younger, more productive back and giving the money you were going to allocate to your running back position to a different guy. Sucks if you're Aaron Jones, but it is what it is. Does.
And Jacobs and Jones are completely different running backs, though. Remember, Jacobs is a between the tackle kind of running back. He's not with Jones. Like Jones, what he can do is he can affect you in the passing game. Has the speed to make people miss people in space, make people miss in space. I would say Jones is kind of a watered down version of McCaffrey, right? He can do a little bit of everything. He has that kind of value, but I literally think you hit the nail on the head. It came down to, we would have paid Aaron, but he is 30, and you know how that goes. We don't want to commit to they just wrote him off. He'll go somewhere else. Aaron Jones, be productive. He won't make a ton of money because he has hit that magical number for running backs. He's 30 years old, but they're gonna play more smash mouth offensively because Jacobs is that kind of running back.
I'll give him a B because they got younger at the running back position.
They did.
So it is what it is. Maybe the money could have been spent better elsewhere. I don't know, but I'll give it a B. The Falcons, baby. Falcons signed Kirk Cousins. All Kirk Cousins does is get the bag. This man just walks around collecting bags in the NFL. 4 years, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed. I'm giving it an A. I don't know what the Super Bowl window is, if there is one, but we said this yesterday. In the NFC, by default, Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. As long as he was on a team with weapons, he's a top 5 quarterback. Could he be a 1 or a 2? Potentially. But I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not Super Bowl contenders because I think that he is a better quarterback than Justin Fields. And people were saying if they got Justin Fields, they should be in the Super Bowl conversation. Well, I think that Kirk Cousins overall, obviously doesn't have Justin's legs or explosiveness, but I think overall he is a better quarterback. So if Justin Fields was going to open up that conversation, Kirk Cousins should definitely open up that conversation. So I give it an
A. So I have my reservations, but I think we talked about this yesterday. Not because I'm not a fan of Kirk Cousins. I was really thinking about, is it a similar situation where he's more of a bridge quarterback because he's an older quarterback? But I'm with you. If Kirk is healthy, and when you look at Pitts, London, Bijan Robinson, so he has a ton of talent, and the critics are right. Kirk, he's not one of those quarterbacks that relies on his wheels. He's a drop back passer. So it's not about athleticism. It's about his ability to dissect defenses and deliver the ball, which he can still do at a high level. So I get the pickup in that way. I also get that it adds added leadership and locker room presence to a young football team. And I'm with you. I thought Justin Fields to Atlanta would be a good fit. I wasn't there with the whole Super Bowl thing, but I thought it would be a good fit because they could have developed together. What this does to me, it speeds up what they can be.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? It leaps ahead. Kirk Cousins makes them relevant right out the gate. He makes them like, Atlanta might win the division. That's very possible. I have no problem with that. Anybody that would say that. My only concern with Atlanta is you bring in a quarterback like Cousins, that offensive line, they better be shored up.
Eagles signed running back Saquon Barkley, which also set off a little Twitter war between Saquon Barkley and Tiki Barber. That was ridiculous. But 3 years, $37.8 million, $26 million guaranteed. I'll let you start, Mo.
Good for Saquon, because I was told running backs didn't make no money. That's a hell of a contract. Look, the money might be a little steep, but you're taking Saquon Barkley and you're putting him behind that Eagles offensive line. You're also putting him on a team where the first time in his career, he's not the first guy that the defense is talking about stopping. I think this offense and the way they're built opens up more opportunities for Saquon Barkley. I do. So I'm going to give it a B+. I'm going to give it a B+, because I do think that it's a good pickup for them, as I have lost myself somewhere in the Netherlands.
You'll come
whatever
back.
reason.
You'll find your way back.
It just drifts me off. But I think it's a B+ move, because my concern with Saquon, Chris, it isn't about his talent. It's always been about his durability.
I'm going to go B-. If he's healthy, then we're good to go, right? The money is a little high for me. I don't know if I would have given him that much money. But at the same time, if the Eagles want to be more of a run-first kind of team and kind of utilize what they have with their quarterback situation, playing it off the run, then that he can be your guy. If he can be healthy, he can absolutely do that. And I think he can absolutely thrive in this Eagles offense. Obviously, you don't know what health is going to be. So you can't sit here and say, well, we're scared he's going to get hurt, so we're not going to sign him. So I totally get that. I did think the money was a tick high, but if they get to a Super Bowl this season or next season and he's productive and he's running for 12 or 1,300 yards, no one's going to be talking about what you paid him. So if that's how it works out, it's going to be a great move for Philadelphia. The twisted side of me wants to see him play the Giants and just kind of run it down their throats. Just saying. So I'm excited for that as well. Yeah. So I think if it all goes as planned and he stays healthy, I think it's a good move for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, good move.
Last one that I want to talk about today, as we are running out of time, or maybe that was the last one. By the way, Gardner Minshew signs as a backup quarterback with the Raiders. And then aside from that, Mo, I think it was the Giants trade. The Panthers trade the edge rusher Brian Burns to the New York Giants. Big splashy move for the Giants.
That's
but
a big move.
I don't know. How do you feel about it, Mo? How do you feel about it?
That's a big move for the Giants. Everybody says the Giants did bad in free agency. I would disagree. You lost Saquon, but you picked up 2 offensive linemen that they needed. You picked up an edge rusher that can be an impactful difference maker for you. So I actually think the Giants are looking at it as we're not expected to win 11 or 12 games, but we're putting in the building blocks or the pieces to make us better going forward. Because I think obviously Daniel Jones is going to be in the mix, going to be their starter. I still think they're going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Mo, close us out, sir, even though you're stuck in Neverland over there.
For whatever reason. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for wherever you are, listening to Chris and I in the morning. Appreciate you, everybody in the chat. Check out all the great content that we offer to you guys at Wire to Wire Network. You've already listened to us. Give us a like, a sub, a follow. Anything you can do for us, we appreciate you. Wire to Wire Network.
Special thanks to JG for coming on the show today from Sports Empire Network. Again, make sure you're checking out all the great content over there. And make sure you're back here with us tomorrow morning. We got Will from the Empire coming on to talk a little NBA. We got the NFL genius himself, Gene, from the Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. He's going to break down and kind of give his grades and talk a little NFL with us. I'm sure that he has some thoughts on all the Eagles moves, specifically one, Saquon. Make sure that you are here for all of that and more. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network, and we will